Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. I've got my old mate Sean with me here today. Gonna talk about the Joshua Ruiz fight. Talk about what's next for him. There's a few other topics you want to touch on as well. Now it's Friday night. We both had a couple of beers. We just fancy talking a few things about the boxing. So first of all, Sean, how's it going, mate? How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's lovely to be back on. Obviously, due to a work situation and this, that, and the other, I shut my YouTube channel down. I am planning actually to have a little comeback, so it's very nice to obviously be back on the channel to chat a bit about the boxing. Recently, obviously, it's been very interesting. We've had the Joshua Ruiz fighting in Saudi Arabia, which is bizarre in itself. I mean, the last time we spoke, I don't think we would ever have thought that there would have been a fight in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting chat for sure, I think. And not only the heavyweight division being interesting, I think there's much more outside that where there's potential for 2020 to essentially be a really good year for boxing. So yeah, looking forward to getting into a chat and seeing what we both think is going to happen.
All right, well, before we, because I haven't had a chance to talk about the fight yet. Well, I say yeah, it was a week ago. I didn't make a post-fight video. I was a bit busy. Actually, the weekend I wasn't feeling too great, so all the sort of things came together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talk about it now. Before we get into that, who did you pick to win the fight going into it this time?
Funny enough, I think we all saw all the videos of people, especially professionals, saying that Joshua didn't have the style to deal with Ruiz's Mexican, come forward, fast hand style and this, that, and the other. To be honest, I thought that was bollocks. Like, I think Joshua went in with the wrong mentality to the fight because he prepared for a completely different fighter essentially in the first fight, and Ruiz went in essentially with a big heart, and he had nothing to lose whatsoever. So I mean, the difference between this fight and that fight was the fact that Ruiz came in as a champion in this fight, and I think that he thought he had the better of Joshua. And I mean, we can go into that in a little bit, but I think the first fight, it was just a case of Joshua's used to, if we look at Joshua's past, he's used to just clipping someone and then he finishes the fight, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So name one fight where he hasn't done that. I mean, apart from the Klitschko fight where it was a bit back and forth, brilliant fight. Aside from that, as soon as Joshua puts someone down, he goes in for the kill, and I think essentially it might have been a really good lesson for him.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no question he got carried away. Uh, um, I actually did think that Ruiz was the slight favourite in the rematch based on the styles. I just thought
Okay.
because I'd seen Joshua before struggle a little bit with that kind of short fighter coming at him, like throwing loads of. Thing with Joshua, like I've seen before, he doesn't really react that well when a lot of punches are coming at him. In terms of like single punches and stuff, like he can avoid them quite well. But flurries and stuff like that, he tends to shell up a little bit. He's not like riding them and like rolling with them, blocking them. He just kind of puts his guard up and I wouldn't say panics, but do you know what I mean? It's a bit he doesn't really deal with it that well. So I thought that was what Ruiz had. Well, it is what Ruiz had, that he couldn't necessarily deal with. I thought he'd have to fight a perfect fight, which is basically what he did. And then he
Yeah.
learned to just clinch him and obviously not engage at all. Now I thought it was a perfect fight by him, really. Now Ruiz obviously came in overweight, wasn't a particularly good performance, but Joshua did exactly what he needed to do. Very, very disciplined. Obviously, the mental aspect of it, the pressure that was on him going into that straight away, because people don't generally get sparked out of that and then go into a rematch immediately and win. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he got taken out of one punch. He got beaten up really for a few rounds. So the mental aspect of it was very impressive.
Yeah.
He did everything. He used all his advantages. It wasn't like people say he kind of fought a bit scared and stuff like that. I mean, I don't agree with that. I think he just did exactly what he needed to do to win. He didn't look. I mean, there were vulnerabilities there clearly, and I do think it'd be a good idea for him to have a confidence building fight next. Like we can get into like who's going to fight like Usyk or Pulev next, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it was very good, but yeah, there definitely were elements of him looking a little bit like not quite back to his old self in terms of
What?
confidence. But that's normal, isn't it? I mean, that's like what you'd expect.
Well, that's something exactly that I wanted to kind of put the point to, and I wanted to see your opinion on. So, I mean, Joshua, who's used to dominating absolutely everybody. I mean, if you're somebody that's not fucking knocked out Vladimir Klitschko and basically every other opponent that you fought in the past, and then you go and fight Ruiz, like obviously in the next fight that comes along, are you going to be as confident as you are? No, you're probably not, and that's exactly what we saw on fight night. Like he was a completely dominant, scary fighter beforehand, and I think that in his own head, and I think it was to his benefit that he thought he was pretty unstoppable, but he obviously took a lot of advice from maybe his management team or even his own head to realise that I am actually fighting people that are more dangerous than I've realised. Because you look at him, Anthony Joshua, like he looks like the most solid geezer in the heavyweight division, but it took a fatty like Andy Ruiz to go and really put it on him and knock him down. Like how many times was it? Was it 3 or 4 times he knocked him down? Like
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah.
yeah, and he really shook him up. And what we saw in the second fight was a completely different fighter. It's almost as if he went back to, like, let's just say his Olympic style boxing. Like it wasn't this Anthony Joshua that's just going to go and flatten Charles Martin in 2 rounds. Like this is Anthony Joshua that came in and realised, well, I might be fighting a fat lump, but I better get back to my basics and essentially use my boxing fundamentals to win a fight that I should have won in the first place. And he really did it well. So he was more cautious, and he was less dominant than, let's just say, his proper alpha male past. But what I'm interested in your thoughts is how is that going to have an effect on his future fights? I mean, like he's got future fights, no doubt, with Wilder, Fury. You're talking Pulev, Usyk. I mean, like, is Anthony Joshua going to change completely for these fights? And I mean, do you ever see him being the same fighter again? Because we've seen him be a completely different fighter from what he's ever been. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Well, he's learning on the job, isn't he? I mean, he still only had about 25 fights, maybe not even that.
Right.
So he's fighting against, like, consistently, like, good people, like top 10, unifying, like, titles. Okay, there's a couple of the top fighters who hasn't fought, but pretty much everyone else he's fought against, really. They've got different styles, so he's obviously evolving. Now, he's got quite a lot of stuff that he can do. So against someone like Ruiz, who's a sort of come forward, who's basically short, quick hands, doesn't have much reach, a bit of a plodder, then he can fight him using that style. So it's a good string to have to his bow. It's the first time we've really seen him do that. Because Ruiz, when he fought Joseph Parker, he had him on the back foot, didn't he? Joseph Parker's been on the back foot a few times since then.
Yeah.
Joseph Parker's got quick hands. He used to be quite aggressive. When he fought Ruiz, like every time he tried to exchange, the first time he's like, fuck that. I'm like, he just got on his bike and out jabbed him. So Ruiz is strong. You know, he's got a good chin. He's not someone you want to trade with on the inside. So he did the right thing. Obviously, learned his lesson. If he fights Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury, then he's not going to fight like that, is he? Because it's not going to work.
This. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is the point I'm making. I mean, if let's just say the first Ruiz fight didn't happen, full stop. Would Anthony Joshua have fought in the same way that he fought, let's say, Ruiz? Because he would have had more of a fear factor against Fury or Wilder. I think he's going to fight completely differently from now on. And what I'm not sure about is whether that's going to be to his benefit or not. Like, he is no doubt going to be fighting a completely different, like in a completely different style. Like his game plan, like his original game plans were working all the way up till Ruiz, and then all of a sudden he's had to change it. And fair play to him, he's changed it well, and he boxed really well. But he's about to be fighting the likes of Wilder, who's going to cause all sorts of different serious problems, and Fury in himself, like different problems as well on a completely different scale. So how do you think that Joshua's going to fare in the future in terms of
Well, but
adapting to that?
he fought Joseph Parker in a completely different style to how he fought Takam, for example, or Vladimir Klitschko. So he has done like different styles of fighting before. Do you know what I mean? When he did the way he fought Joseph Parker the first time was basically how I thought he was going to fight Ruiz the first time. I thought he's basically taller than him. He's got longer reach. He's quite quick on his feet. Ruiz is a bit of a plodder. The only chance he's got is if he gets into these close exchanges, and that's basically the mistake that he made. So I think he has done it before. It's just this time he did it like under real pressure, and he did it without making a foot wrong, putting a foot wrong. And every time he got near him, he just grabbed him, and like did exactly what he does, total discipline. But I haven't seen him use different styles of thought. If you fought Wilder, for example, I think the best tactic for him would to be, as soon as he could get on the inside, I think he'd murder Wilder. But if he's basically like at range, Wilder could just spark him out at any minute. So I don't think like he wants to fight on the back foot at long range with Deontay Wilder.
No, but I mean, just to go back to Parker, I mean, from my memory of that fight, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, I think Parker fought that just to survive the 12 rounds. And like Parker's a good fighter, and he's fit and he's strong, and he's able to move around. He's not like Andy Ruiz, who is not able to cut someone off of the ring and move around quickly and like kind of go left and right. Like, I mean. To be fair to Joshua, he didn't get a chance to use his ability against Parker because Parker ran away, in my opinion. I think Parker was more than satisfied just to last the 12 rounds and not get knocked out. So I'm not sure how comparable that is, if I'm quite honest.
The comparison for me is that Parker's like got basically quite a lot shorter arms, and he's got quite quick combinations. So similar to Ruiz, difference being that Ruiz is like he just constantly comes forward. And he's a lot more aggressive. But that sort of weakness that Parker, if he had a more aggressive style, potentially could have exploited, is what Ruiz exploited. So Joshua was quite aware of that, and he used his reach advantage, and he didn't really need to go on the back foot too much, because as you say, Parker wasn't really up for exchanging, to be honest. But Joshua was like maintaining his range at all times, which is what he did in the second Ruiz fight, but just with a more aggressive opponent. That's the comparison that I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So, I mean, moving on from that, like, how much do you think that's kind of set him up for the Wilder or Fury fight? Because that's what the fans want to see. That's what we want to see, isn't it? Like, I mean, we've spoken about mandatories earlier between Pulev and Usyk. I mean, how well do you think that this change of style that he's had to make, because obviously he's realised that he's vulnerable now, like I think more so than he did before. How well do you think that's kind of set him up against Wilder or Fury? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it might make him more potentially more likely to take the fight, because they weren't looking too keen before that, were they? Not saying they're looking particularly keen now, but I think they're potentially be more likely to want to fight him after seeing that. I mean, Wilder must be absolutely kicking himself. Like, I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like turning down that money from DAZN. I mean, he could have beaten Josh. I mean, that really, like you'd say, I don't know. You have to look into more detail. But he's got like a good chance. He's got a good chance of losing, good chance of winning. But he could have won that fight. He could have been undisputed, and he could have had about 50 million. Because people say, oh, well, Ruiz won anyway, so like then that fight. But if the Wilder fight was signed next, they would have taken someone other than Ruiz, probably. Do you know what I mean? They would have just someone who's just like got no chance at all.
But then, in all honesty, think about the management behind Joshua and Wilder. I mean, it was a very dangerous fight for both. And in terms of Joshua's kind of celebrity status at the time, which I think has somehow dropped just a bit, ever so slightly, but I wouldn't say by too much. I mean, Joshua earned so much more money, like after that whole saga happened, from fights that he had the potential of winning much more easily. So, I mean, do you think it was a Joshua decision? I don't think it was. I think it was a management decision. I think Herm was behind that, and he's potentially the rest of his team. You know, like
bit behind what?
Behind not allowing the Wilder fight to happen earlier than we thought. I thought that's what you were insinuating there.
No, I was insinuating. I mean, it's quite clear what happened. I mean, basically, Wilder and his team like turned down various offers.
Yeah, but that's all that's all speculation.
That's not speculation. That is factual. Even like Shelley Finkel like admits it. They actually had a meeting where they offered them 20 million to fight Brazil, and then 40 million like to fight Joshua after, and then the rematch that they claimed they wanted for like another 40 million, and they turned it down. And they started talking about, he's like betting he can make more on like pay-per-view and all that, which in this day and age is extremely optimistic that you're going to make that amount of money on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not really like it's quite clear if you look at like the actual facts that basically Wilder and his team turned it down on more than one occasion.
Well,
it's really like I mean, that could have been him in that position. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, from that perspective, I can see exactly what you're saying. But at the same time, we have absolutely no idea what's happening behind the scenes. Like you can see on IFL or any, boxing relatives channel. Like
it's not
say that again.
That's not disputed though. Like that, like Wilder and his team don't dispute the fact that they were like offered that amount of money, and they had the meeting with John Skipper, like whoever he is, like the main man at DAZN, and they turned it down. And there's like interviews with them, like explaining why they did it, saying that they want to do it on like pay-per-view and all this and the other. So it's not like a case of like speculation. It's literally like documented fact.
But you still, at the same time, you still don't know what happened behind the scenes through that. It's fair enough what you're saying. I totally agree. But you still, you just don't know. And to be fair, I mean, if you're asking for my opinion, yes, I don't think that Wilder fancied the fight at all. Like, I will say that as a fact. But I mean, as fans and as very small boxing pundits as we are, we seriously don't know what has happened behind the scenes to either make that fight happen or not make that fight happen. Like whatever we've heard, you can't trust it to be true 100%. That's a fact, can you? Right.
But if basically like both sides say that this is what happened, then I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's what happened. I'm not necessarily saying that Deontay Wilder himself doesn't. Well, I mean, who knows? But I think it's pretty clear that like his team don't. And I think that's probably just to do with the sort of network issues. I mean, obviously a lot of politics involved, but
it's network issues, and politics and whatever you want to name it. But they could also just be using this as a fuel to the fire to pump this up for late 2020 fight that's been organised for God knows how long. So,
I think the problem is, like I say, they either can't accept or don't want to accept or are trying to change the situation where Wilder is the clear B side in the fight, and they want to. It seems to me like they're just sort of hanging on to some pipe dream about him turning into some big, like pay-per-view star in America, like of days gone by, and like they've had. Well, the Fury fight pay-per-view, which did didn't really make much money. I think I've heard a couple of different I'm not sure if Showtime officially said it was 325,000 or whether that was a number that was like given to boxing scene anonymously. So I don't know, but let's say like around 300,000, 325,000 against Tyson Fury. Then you got this fight with Luis Ortiz, a complete flop.
Yeah, farce.
Pay a lot of money, like hardly anyone basically paid to watch it. So like in the past, people used to pay for pay-per-view, and people like the only person really in America who's selling what was selling pay-per-view is Canelo, and now he's on DAZN. These people think that Wilder is suddenly going to turn into Floyd Mayweather. That's what I think. So they just can't accept that people from Britain are like bigger than them commercially, and they have to basically go along with being the B side and taking less money. That's my opinion as to why the fight hasn't happened, because they just accept basically that.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I mean, moving on from that. I mean, so I this started for me essentially saying, how has the last fight set Joshua up against the likes of Wilder, or even Fury? I mean, do you think that AJ at this point, let's just say they fight in 3-4 months' time, do you think AJ beats Wilder and Fury, or what's your view on that?
It's difficult. The thing like Wilder, like you can't really be that confident like with him beating anyone or anyone beating him. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of people that are good. I mean, yeah, if he fights against people who are like Gerald Washington and whoever, like yeah, you could be confident he's going to win. If he's fighting someone like Joshua or Fury or someone like that, then you can't be that confident in thinking he's going to win or lose, because he could quite easily be outboxed, he could be knocked out, but he could also just knock anyone out at any moment.
Yeah.
So if he fought against Joshua, for me, it's almost someone is going to get knocked out. Now, if the fight ends up close, if Joshua can get inside him, I think he'll basically just bash him up. But if he can't, and he's like a bit, because I think obviously at first they'll be a bit scared of each other and a little bit tentative.
Yeah.
So as long as you're sort of Wilder still in the fight, and as long as the fight's at long range, he's very, very dangerous. So I don't know. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, Joshua looks a bit vulnerable now after the Ruiz." That's a completely different style matchup. Ruiz is very, very aggressive, very high volume, and he's got short and he's got throws combinations. That's not what Deontay Wilder does at all. He fights very, very cautiously. He's a bit nervous. He doesn't throw hardly any punches. So it's a completely different style. Do you know what I mean? So I really don't know. It's a very interesting one.
It is, and that's why I had to ask. I mean, with as far as Joshua's concerned, I mean, the way he fought Andy Ruiz in the last fight was like a boxer, but in the past, all we've seen from Anthony Joshua is a beast, isn't it? Like it's just it's an absolute machine that punches through steel metal, like, and he literally showed a completely different side. So that's why I find it so interesting on what he's going to do in his potentially future fights. So I mean, obviously we spoke a bit prior to the video about his mandatories, which are Pulev and Usyk. Sorry, you're going to interrupt there.
It's about in terms of like Tyson Fury. That's again, that's an interesting one, because Tyson Fury, you'd expect Anthony Joshua to be a lot more aggressive against Tyson Fury than he was against Ruiz, and he would be against Wilder.
That's very true.
Fury, he's not. He doesn't have that sort of power that Wilder has, and he doesn't have those kind of like fast, rapid combinations and like difficult to hit. Well, he is difficult to hit, but from a different perspective. He's not kind of short, compact, and he's having to punch down. So that, again, it'd be quite difficult to predict. I would have said that Fury would like kind of use his legs, outwork him. But since Joshua was like trimmed down and he sort of showed he could move around for 12 rounds, it's made that fight a bit more interesting for me. And I would have said before that I'd expect Tyson Fury to be able to just outbox him and just tire him out, possibly stop him late. But Joshua's obviously developing quite a lot, his ring IQ, his stamina, he's brought his weight down, he moves a lot better, and obviously he's going to be aggressive with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury's been knocked down before. I mean, they're all vulnerable, the heavyweights, do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I mean, if either of the fights get made, then I'll give like a better analysis on it. I'll look into it in more detail. But as of right now, I can see all of those like going either way, to be honest.
Either way, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the mandatories then. The Pulev and Usyk. First of all, I think we both agree that the more likely course they're going to take is to fight against Pulev. Is that right? Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think that's because essentially Pulev. I mean, is it safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I feel like Pulev has essentially been out of the game for a little while. Like he doesn't seem to be as relevant as, let's just say, once was.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't know how old he is now. Like, how old's Pulev?
I think he's late, I think like 39, 38 maybe. He's definitely like on the slide a bit.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, like he's kind of like, I mean, he's fought. Who's he fought recently? He's fought Huey Fury, and he's fought.
He beat Derek Chisora recently as well.
Who? Sorry.
He beat Derek Chisora, didn't he? Not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like Derek Chisora, but I don't rate him as as even a top. I suppose at the moment he can be considered a top 10 heavyweight, but he's not an elite fighter, is he?
Well, I think now he's on better form than when Pulev beat. He was a bit uninterested. I think it was a bad style matchup for him as well. And Chisora, sometimes he just turns up and he can't be fucked, can he? He's just sort of plodding around and he doesn't really have that much motivation. I think it's one of them, really. Yeah. I think Pulev, he's been a sort of top 10 or like really heavyweight for a while, hasn't he? So as you could compare him to like Povetkin or Ortiz or these kind of characters who's sort of been around for a while, being like kind of, maybe not Povetkin, I'll put above that, but like similar-ish in the sense that he's a bit past his best. He's still a solid fighter, but I don't really. For me, that would be a perfect fight for Joshua next. Because if they do it back in London, obviously he's fought in America, had a bit of a complete disaster there. Then went to Saudi Arabia, the confidence-building fight of that, got his belts back. Then I'd say fight against Pulev. It was a solid contender. You know what I mean? He's not. Like you say, he's not as good as he once was, but he's still a solid, respectable name. But I think Joshua should beat him by knockout. Should get like quite a lot of confidence and build the momentum back with that, more so than Usyk, who potentially could not only beat him, like convincingly beat him.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, like looking at Pulev's history, honestly I've just got it up on BoxRec. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, since Vladimir Klitschko, he's beat George Arias, Maurice Harris, Chisora, Samuel Peter, Kevin Johnson. Obviously in the UK, we all know he's beat Huey Fury, which was a bit disappointing for us. I thought Huey had a better chance than he did, but he obviously just got outclassed. And then there's two people after that I've just never even heard of. So, I mean, Pulev has become essentially irrelevant. And in terms of Eddie Hearn, promoting a big fight, it totally makes sense for him to put him against Pulev before he sits him in the likes against the likes of Usyk. Yeah. I mean, Usyk in himself. Sorry, go on.
Especially after the last two fights. I mean, he got knocked out not 2 fights ago. Do you know what I mean? So, if Tyson Fury can fight Otto Wallin, Deontay Wilder can rematch a 50-year-old. I think that he can fight Pulev, who's a mandatory challenger in this situation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got every right.
It's fair enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Usyk's it's a different fight, isn't it? I mean, like that's like I see Usyk as somebody that's a bit like Povetkin, if that makes sense to you, but with a bit more boxing class. Like Povetkin's dangerous, but obviously they're of slightly similar heights, aren't they? And I'd say slightly similar builds. But I'd say
got longer reach, hasn't
he? Maybe he has, but I'd say if I put Usyk against Povetkin, I'd pick Usyk personally. But I still think it'd be a cracking fight. Like Povetkin's going to give a cracking fight against anybody. Like I rate him very highly.
I do rate him. I just think he's like, is he 40 now?
Povetkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I think he's 39 actually, and I don't know
Okay,
why.
yeah, but he got knocked out by Joshua in the fight before, and then beat Hughie Fury. Fought that Michael Hunter. Probably lucky to get a draw in that. He looked to me like he was sort of he's seen better days. I think
Yeah.
he's still, don't get me wrong, he's still a big massive puncher, isn't he?
Oh,
And
he's still relevant though. He's
yeah,
still relevant for sure.
yeah. I would say he's a solid like kind of top 10. Definitely, I've definitely put him above Pulev, no question.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting fight. It'd be interesting to see someone like Anthony Joshua go up against a boxer like that, because if we look at Anthony Joshua's history, I mean, can you name a boxer like a genuine boxer that has the technique and style and
Usyk,
finesse that Usyk has?
well, no,
You
can't.
can't, can you? You really can't. So how does Anthony Joshua adapt to that? Like it's a massive question. It's not one obviously that we can answer. Like it's
Also, I saw that someone put like a stat up on Facebook saying that Usyk, I know this is a cruiserweight, but still, so he threw like as many punches in one round against Gassiev in the final of the Super Series, or whatever it's called,
right.
as Joshua did in the entire fight against Ruiz. I mean, that's ridiculous, but that's like sort of Manny Pacquiao style, like just on you,
Box.
yeah, like that kind of machine gun style pressure that you're not used to if you're a heavyweight. Now, it's one thing doing that against Gassiev, another thing doing it, but he's a big puncher, so he's now up at heavyweight.
Yeah. I mean,
That kind of speed, that kind of pressure, and that kind of volume is going to be a problem for anyone who can't just sort of knock him out. It's going to be
but
a real fucking pain in the arse dealing with that.
but at the same time, you got to think Usyk has moved up. Like he's fighting Anthony Joshua, who is a machine of a man.
Yeah,
So, I mean, Usyk's got to beef up himself a little bit, and what essentially does he lose from doing that? Like he could lose a hell of a lot. Like we don't know. And Usyk's never fought anybody that can punch as hard as Anthony Joshua. So as much as we can say, yes, Usyk's a great boxer and he could
yeah,
cause all sorts of problems. Like Anthony Joshua could absolutely punch his lights out of him in 2-3 rounds, and then Usyk goes back to being, just that fellow who shouldn't have stepped up to heavyweight. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how the fans are going to see it. Like, and that's a possibility of how it could all fall out. Like, we just don't know, do we? The thing is,
no,
there's
no,
still
that
there's still questions about Anthony Joshua, and that's what's exciting, I suppose, about heavyweight boxing, because Joshua is now the most relevant heavyweight again, and then Tyson Fury and Wilder have got to go in and essentially, well, they've got to fight each other on February 1st. And then whoever wins that really does have to fight Joshua, and we're going to find out what happens, aren't we? Like
yeah.
after Joshua fights his
I
mandatories,
I
like we
think
said. Yeah, fucking hell. Like
if the IBF and the WBO can agree and let one of them go first, then I think everyone, well, Joshua's team and all that are going to be quite. If it's Pula, that's really the obvious one, as we said. So
yeah,
if they don't agree to it, and he has to vacate one of the belts, then that probably works out better through the WBO as well, because Usyk's co-promoted by Eddie Hearn. Derek Chisora or Joseph Parker, I think, are the two potential opponents for it. Both of them promoted by Eddie Hearn.
but
So,
does that work out for the WBO? Does it? Like when you
well,
think about the amount of money that Joshua generates?
yeah, that's nothing. Are they going to want to? Yeah, I mean, they might do, but I'd be surprised. I'd be more the IBF. I wouldn't be surprised because they don't give a shit, do they?
No, the IBF are actually quite trusted as far as that's concerned. But yeah,
The WB, yeah, the W, maybe, yeah, that's a good point.
IBF. Sorry, you said WBF. IBF.
I said that. I said that, or you said that.
Huh?
I said, well, I did say there was a disclaimer at the start that we've both been had a few drinks.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
pronounce like 6 words, then that's the all right. There's another. You want to talk about the Canelo before we go as well?
Yeah, well, I'm interested about his situation at the moment. I
Yeah.
mean, so I mean, after his recent win at £175,
Yeah.
I mean, does he go back to 168? I think yes, he does. Does he fight Callum Smith? No, I don't think he fights Callum Smith because, I mean, Callum Smith, I mean, obviously just had a very questionable win against John Ryder. A lot of people are upset about that, understandably, and it was a close fight. And I mean, there's always going to be high emotions about close fights. And I think if Callum Smith was a bit more popular, then people probably would have given him more credit for the
Yeah.
win
Especially
because
the
of that.
underdog does better than expected. Especially when the underdog does better than expected, then people are, you know, they're always going to say it's a robbery, aren't they? I think that was a bit blown out of proportion, personally. I mean, I've only seen it once, but I thought it was a very close fight. I certainly didn't see, John Ryder sort of dominating the fight like a lot of people have said.
No, I'm the same. I actually watched it the first time. I was thinking, oh shit, is this going to be a draw or is it going to be a very close 7-5? And yeah, I mean, it turned out the way it did. But I mean, Canelo's potential opponents, like, do you think? I mean, who do you actually think that he would consider fighting? I mean,
Well,
I would never have said it, but I think Billy Joe Saunders is actually a really good potential fight for him at the moment, especially after his last performance. Because before I wouldn't have said so. Like if you asked me after the David Lemieux fight, I think Canelo would have thought like absolutely fuck fighting this fella. Like he's gonna move around, he's gonna box all night, he's gonna drive me mad. But
like
I think Billy Joe's had a dip since, hasn't he?
yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. If you exactly the same thing. If you said to me before, I'd say Billy Joe Saunders is like a sort of better version of Erislandy Lara, and that fight was very, very debatable whether Canelo won. And you
Yeah.
think not only that, it was just quite a sort of a negative style. Billy Joe Saunders has got quite a sort of negative style, and yeah, that's not something I thought they'd. But like recently, I thought he's looked a lot better. I mean, the first Golovkin fight, I thought was a robbery. I thought Golovkin clearly won the fight. The second fight was amazing. That was both. That was one of the best fights I think I've ever seen. Like just the high level.
Technically,
It was
technically.
amazing. That like both Canelo and Golovkin were like outstanding in that. Like just everything about it. He really impressed me in that. Like how he'd improved since then. Obviously, just completely dominated Danny Jacobs, and then went out and knocked up. No, went out and knocked out. Like fucking went up and knocked out Sergey Kovalev. Admittedly, like a slightly faded version, but still, that's impressive. He is from strength to strength, isn't he? Whereas Billy Joe Saunders, like you said, hasn't looked great. I mean, he's been a bit inactive. He's kind of doesn't really. I mean, he fights sort of decent people here and there, but he fights quite a lot of just cherry picks as well. Didn't take the Andrade fight. Sort of went up and sort of cherry picked a sort of vacant belt against someone we'd never heard of. Didn't look very good in that.
But that's the best point, Sean, isn't it? He's got a belt that Canelo could essentially take because he never officially got an official super middleweight belt. He took the belt off Rocky Fielding, which was it was the secondary belt to the the WBC. Yeah. So I mean, as much as they advertise that. WBA, sorry, yeah, it's gone off my head.
WBA, patient belt or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ridiculous in itself, the way they even title it. But yeah, I mean, so I think if Canelo's going to move down to 168, then yeah, I think Saunders is an obvious pick for me at this point because I think after beating the likes of Jacobs, I think if Canelo can beat Jacobs, then I think that he's going to think in his head that he can definitely beat Saunders because, I mean, he's just going to beat Kovalev, and Kovalev was outboxing him, let's face it, because he was the bigger man. Kovalev has a lot of experience, so he was using a jab quite well, but Canelo is a monster, and as we discussed earlier, like I think that he has the potential if he keeps on fighting essentially the best fighters of this generation, which he has done time and time and again. He has the potential to go down in history as one of the best fighters that have ever existed, and he already is. But he's still what? He's only 29, 30, like Canelo.
Yeah. What I'd like to see from him, what I'd like to see from him is because obviously there's a lot of very good names on his record, but there is a lot of question marks, as well, isn't there? Like a lot of people old, sort of coming to the end of their career, weight like a catch weight, or like there's too many of them for me to give him total credit. Like I do give him a lot of credit. I mean, the Kovalev win was great. As I said, the Danny Jack, he has got a lot of good wins, but I think he has got a bit of an inflated record just in terms of like the names that he's beaten. If you really look at the circumstances behind it, but I do think he's just getting better all the time. Like that performance, the way he knocked out Kovalev was fucking beautiful,
phenomenal.
And the second one took Kovalev was bang. It reminded me a little bit of the way like Povetkin done David Price. Do you know what I mean? Where he just kind of like caught him with the side hook. David Price just standing there, and then bang, just sparked him with the big. That's like just came from nowhere. Like the way he sets it up, he really is looking the part to me. In terms of who, like obviously the light heavyweight champions, the Turbiev, I don't think he's just a fucking absolute monster.
Do you think he's going to fight a light heavyweight again? I can't see it.
He's not going to fight. He's not going to fight Turbiev. I'll tell you that much.
No, certainly not. But
could potentially fight Bivol, because he's not really like I don't know if he will, but I wouldn't be that surprised if he fought Bivol. But Turbiev, forget it. Super middleweight. Benavidez, Callum Smith, I'd say probably. I don't think he really ideally want to fight either of them.
No, he wouldn't.
What's he called? The American brother, Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant.
Yeah.
Joe Saunders, I think he would see as like a easier touch than Benavidez or Smith.
And then he gets his real world title, which is what I'm saying. Like that's why I envisaged that happening possibly in April or May Decinco next year. Like that's where I can possibly see that going. But do you see Canelo going down to middleweight ever again?
I don't think so, mate. I don't think. I mean, to be honest, like he's gone up that way. He's getting older now. I don't think he really wants to. In any case, the people there, he's shown no interest. He could have fought. He doesn't want to fight Andrade, mate. No way. And like Charlo, like he was the sort of WBC mandatory. He didn't want to fight him. He's shown no interest in fighting those two before. So why is he going to go? The only reason he would do is if he was just thinking, well, I'd rather fight them than whoever else. But I don't think he really wants to go down to middleweight. No, I think like super middleweight is where he's going to be best.
So that's where he sticks at. Well, I'll tell you, I'll make a bet with you. I guarantee that if the next fight that he chooses to fight at 168, it's going to be Billy Joe Saunders without a doubt. Because I mean, even I've seen more weaknesses from Billy Joe than I'd like to have seen ever since the Lemieux fight. But Billy Joe's back with Dominic Ingle now, isn't he? So, I mean, that was when he was at his absolute peak, and I think for the likes of Canelo, I think they'd get him in the shape again that he was for Lemieux, and I think that fight would be brilliant. But obviously, I think
there were like extenuating circumstances around that last performance, like problems with the visa. He got out there late, and maybe a bit. Do you know what I mean? The preparation wasn't ideal. And also, like Billy Joe, he's a bit like Tyson Fury in the sense that if he fights someone who's not very good, he doesn't look that impressive, does he? He doesn't really dominate like poor opposition. Okay, stop the bloke, but he's not someone who really just looks the part wherever. He needs to fight against someone with some threat, and then you see the best of him.
Yeah, totally agree. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Canelo 2020. I mean, I only see 2 fights personally. If he has 3, then absolutely brilliant. But Canelo's only going to fight somebody that offers him something like a belt, and he's not going to be fighting anybody unless there's a certain name that may come back, for example. But that's not going to be Floyd Mayweather. We can all keep wishing that, but it's never happening, is it? I mean, the next part of the conversation that I wanted to bring up was, and this is just a nice one to end the conversation on, is box rec, the box rec rankings. How do you feel about them, Sean?
I mean, they've got like a kind of automated system, haven't they? Where they basically just rank it on a point system. I'm not really sure how it works. I don't think it's particularly reliable or particularly something that people would respect.
No,
I mean, but I don't even know what they do. If you just look at it, it looks pretty laughable to me from when I have seen it.
and it is. I mean, like I looked at the top 25 pound for pound fighters earlier, and I can get it up now.
So it's a top five with that.
Say again.
I'll tell you what. Without seeing that, I'll tell you who my top five pound for pound is. Not in any order. This is no order. This is just I think are the best five off the top of my head, and I do emphasise this is no order. So basically, like Lomachenko, Crawford, Usyk, Inoue, and then
Canelo, you've missed, I think.
Oh, Canelo, cool, yeah, okay, yeah. So Lomachenko, Crawford, Canelo, Usyk, Inoue. That off the top of my head, those are the five sort of standout fighters right now in boxing.
Right, well, let me just tell you the top five because I've got it in front of me right now. So we've got Canelo's number one, Crawford second, Golovkin third, Errol Spence fourth, and Lomachenko fifth. And I think anybody could kind of argue them in some way. But I kind of like.
I don't understand what Errol Spence is doing in there.
You don't understand?
I like both of them. By the way. I'm a fan of both Golovkin and Errol Spence, but I don't think they should be in the top five.
So we get with Golovkin. I mean,
years ago, yes, or a couple of years ago, whatever, but certainly not now.
But had Golovkin beaten Canelo in that first fight, like we all thought he did, I mean, I thought he nicked it. You thought he nicked it. Like, would that have changed your would that change your opinion now? I think it possibly would.
But that's what I'm saying. Like a couple of years ago, yes, absolutely, Golovkin should have been in there, but not now. Like, I mean, not because for me, pound for pound, partly it's accomplishments, but it's basically what you are right now. So Golovkin's like nearly 40 years old, isn't he?
He's actually, I can see it in front of me. He's 37.
Okay, 37, but he's a real kind of in your face, like kind of durable kind of. That's the thing. Like Canelo as well. As much as I give Canelo credit for the second fight, let's not act like he didn't age him out for the first fight and like ducked him originally. Gave up.
Well, Canelo wasn't really fighting at Golovkin's weight for a long time, was he?
He was. Golovkin was his mandatory.
No, but Canelo was fighting at 154 and all sorts for years. I can look at it now, mate. Like he was
55. He was fighting. He had his own weight class. Miguel Cotto basically like fought.
He fought him at 155.
Yeah, which is a made up like weight division. Miguel Cotto basically like fought it, and then he fought Canelo. Canelo wanted to call himself the middleweight champion, and then Golovkin was mandatory. And he said, "Oh no, you can't. You can't have the middleweight title, and then say, oh, I'm not going to fight at that weight limit."
No, that is bollocks. I don't disagree with that, but he fought Amir Khan obviously at 160 after that, and obviously he chinned him.
155 again, Canelo weight.
Yeah, that was a Canelo, but every weight's a Canelo weight. We all know that.
No, but that was literally Canelo weight, mate. 155 pounds. He had his own like weight class, and he was saying, "I'm the middleweight. Golovkin's got to fight me." What do you mean he's got to fight you? That it's middleweight. You can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree. And then he did have fights in between that. I mean, he fought Liam Smith, didn't he? And then he fought fucking what's his name, Chavez Jr. And Chavez Jr. That was at super middle anyway, wasn't it?
No, that was another catch weight, mate. That was like 164 or something.
It's 165. Yeah, you're right. No, John, I remember. 165. Yeah. So he's had his own weights, but I mean, he's obviously got the the ability to command these weights apart from when he's fighting the likes of the Golovkins and let's just say, you know, the Jacobs and the Kovalevs, but he still puts you know, hydration clauses on and this, that, and the other. So yes, it's a little bit annoying. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It really is annoying. But yeah, I mean, going back to the box rec thing.
Who else is on this then?
So yeah, I wanted to speak more. What about I don't like about this is Callum Smith is ranked 7 pound for pound fighter on the planet on box rec.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that.
No, and then let me go a bit further. We've got Chris Eubank Jr. number 12. Like,
I'd had him a bit higher personally.
Say it again.
I would have had him a bit higher personally.
Chris Eubank Jr.
Have him in the top 3.
Yeah, of course you would. Chris Eubank Jr. being in the top 15 of the planet, pound for pound, like it's an absolute joke, isn't it? Like, I mean, Daniel Jacobs being number 13. I mean, I really like Daniel Jacobs, but I don't think he's pound for pound number 13. And then I'll just go down a few more. I mean, we've got Josh Warrington at 18. Really like Josh Warrington. I think he's quality. I suppose, do you know, there's totally an argument that Josh Warrington's top 20 pound for pound. Can't really say that he's not. But then you go down further the list and you've got the likes of Alexander Usyk, ranked 26, sorry. Like,
I mean, below like Warrington, Eubank and Danny Jacobs.
Yeah. How the fuck's Usyk behind them lot, mate? Like, so we've got people using a fairly reputable site. I mean, I use it to follow fights and fight results and things like that. And I think they should have a bit more responsibility.
I just use it to look at people's records, see who they fought.
Yes, but I use it for that too. But I don't understand how these people are essentially getting points. Like, I'll pick one out in particular, like Eubank Jr., like having 710 points. Like, who the fuck has Eubank fought and beat? And then
his best win, isn't it?
James DeGale, yeah. And then he's lost against George Groves and Billy Joe Saunders, and the rest of them, they're like, don't get me wrong, they're good fighters and they deserve their recognition. But
yeah.
I mean, you know, like, who are they to make him number 12? I mean, I just think it's a bit of a farce, box rec, and I think they really need to sort it out. In my opinion, like, I don't like
any of this sort of like pound for pound stuff. I'm not really a big fan of. It's just sort of pure like guesswork, isn't it? I mean, they've obviously got their system, at least, but who knows what it is? And if it's a system that puts like you say, like Chris Eubank and Josh Warrington ahead of Usyk, then it seems to be flawed, like in terms of as a pound for pound like list. I mean, it must be some kind of like accomplishments list based on whatever they consider to be accomplishments.
Or is it also and let's just go into conspiracy theories. Is it a funded list to promote certain people? Because let's just say Chris Eubank Jr. is a great example of somebody that's very easy to promote. He's quite hateable, but he's quite likable and he's a really exciting fighter. And I enjoy watching his fights, but I don't like him. Like,
I don't dislike him. I'm quite interested to see how he does in America, because now he's over there, isn't he? He's potentially might be fighting Jamal Charlo, which I quite like the idea of.
Yeah, love it. I'd love to see that, but what chances do you give him
against Jamal Charlo?
Yeah, give a ratio percentage wise. What you give?
50-50.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I give him at best 40-60.
Don't know. I mean, what have you seen from Jamal Charlo that's that impressive?
A boxing ability that I haven't seen from Eubank. Eubank essentially is just in my eyes a slugger, and from Charlo I've seen a boxing ability to be able to jab and move, use his feet, and Eubank's footwork is I don't know. It's lackluster in my opinion. But,
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I mean, I could see that being an outcome. Jamal Charlo basically like outboxing him, like on the move. But don't know. Eubank, like he's lost to two like very good opponents. One, Billy Joe Saunders, he was quite inexperienced. That was a close fight. Billy Joe Saunders, I picked to beat Jamal Charlo like any day of the week at his best. He lost to George Groves, who's a big lump, and he had like a very, very good style to beat Eubank. And he
yeah,
gave it. I mean, yeah, he got thoroughly like outbot, but he doesn't give up. Eubank, he's got a great engine, a lot of heart, tough work rate. He's not. I think people underestimate him personally. I'm not saying that he's. I do understand his flaws and like stuff that he's not very good at, but he does have like quite a lot of attributes as well.
yeah.
I like to see it. I see that as a 50-50, personally.
So, I mean, just as a point, I mean, we've had a pretty comprehensive conversation. Who's Chris Eubank Jr.'s? I know he's I see. I don't even follow him. He's fought Korobov.
Korobov, that was a weird. I want to get injury.
Did you watch that? I didn't personally.
No, I didn't see it because it was the same. That was the well. I mean, it was in America at like sort of 5 in the morning when I didn't bother watching it. But Korobov got like pulled out with some kind of back injury, I think, after like a couple of rounds.
Right. So I mean, don't get me wrong. Eubank's an exciting fighter at 160. Who do you pair him against? I think you said Charlo already.
For me, the best at 160 right now is Andrade.
And no one wants to fight him anyway.
No one wants to fight him, mate. Jamal Charlo like basically did like a complete U-turn, like when Hearn said, "All right, let's basically do it." Then now Andrade's basically saying, "Look, if you are your own boss, like you say, come and fight me." Hasn't done it yet. He hasn't taken him up on it. Billy Joe Saunders ducked him. Canelo basically doesn't want. I mean, Canelo sort of does his own thing. He doesn't want anything to do with him. Golovkin doesn't want anything to do with him. So he's like the real kind of boogeyman, if you like, in my opinion. I mean, you can say he doesn't really bring up much to the table, but he's a world champion. So there's no excuse for people not to fight him. So for me, he's the best right now at middleweight. Now Golovkin's got a bit past it, and Canelo's like seemingly left the division.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he hasn't like proven it. You know what I mean? He hasn't really like established himself as a clear number one. I just think that from the fact that like Billy Joe Saunders and Jamal Charlo are like, well, Billy Saunders has moved up now, hasn't he? But those two are just like avoided him. Canelo and Golovkin don't want to fight him. I mean, he's a world champion to me. He's looks like the best.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think 2020's got some interesting stuff in line for us, especially I think once we get to 3 to 5 months in a year. I think we're looking forward to some really interesting fights for sure.
All right, mate. Shall we leave it there? Because obviously we've been on here for an hour now.
Yeah, I mean we could probably talk all day, mate. So yeah, no, I think it's probably a good call. Yeah, I think once some new fights we'll do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the Crawford fight on Saturday. I don't know enough about his opponent really to talk too much about it before, but I'll definitely make a post-fight video about it.
Okay. Make sure that just for the banterist who's watching, that you don't mention Ty and Booth or Crawford's wife, because I think you might get a few troll comments in your channel, and by me saying that, I'm kind of hoping you do. But I mean, I know you're not a fan of Ty and Booth, are you? But
not a big fan.
No. But I think in some ways he's funny for the sport. But yeah, I mean, he does make a mockery out of things. But yeah, I suppose probably a good time to leave it there. I mean, thanks for having me on. I mean,
thanks for coming on, mate.
It's been great being back on the channel, and yeah, mate. As soon as some good fights are announced in 2020, totally game for coming back on and having a good chat about what's going on, basically.
Yeah, sound mate. Definitely, we'll catch up soon.
All right, Pucker Sean.
thank you to everybody for watching. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Good night.